I want to talk about this interview that I saw yesterday with Dana White. The reporter who conducted the interview is Amber Dixon. She's been around the Las Vegas scene, not as a fight reporter, but as a general news reporter who has great knowledge and appreciation of fighting and sports. And she got an opportunity for the PBS affiliate in Vegas to interview Dana White about this weekend's Crawford-Canelo card. And you see a lot of people praising her, as they should, because it was a great interview conducted by a real journalist asking real questions. It stood out, I think, because Dana doesn't speak to real journalists. And so it was very refreshing to see him actually speak to someone who knows about what they're asking and talking about, who was well-researched, who was up to speed. He used to do that more often than not. And you see in the clips that we're going to show, he plays the same old hits. He's like a doll with a string in the back. And when he doesn't have a proper answer, he reverts back to the same old tired answers. And so Amber did a A+, 10 out of 10, 15 out of 10 job and asked him not mean, malicious questions, but I think fair, well-researched, pertinent questions that have since received a lot of praise and admiration, as they should, because they were well-researched and because she knew what she was talking about. So here's one clip of Dana talking about what Zuffa boxing is going to be, which I think is really interesting because I think it's a little bit different than what they said it was originally going to be back in March. Take a look.
Basically in 26, I'm going to start my show. And what I'm going to do is basically like the Contender Series. The best will fight the best. Undefeated guys will fight undefeated guys. And what you will do is you will care about the first fight of the night and not just the main event. So I will build stars, put on great fights, and then these guys will graduate, and fight with Shake Turkey, and they will.
Can we pause it right there? Am I crazy, or is this not a little bit different than what we were originally told, which was I'm handing off, the baton to Dana White and TKO. What he's describing here is a Contender Series, which would then lead to ring events. That's how I took it, which is different than what we heard back in March of last year, which was like, we're coming together to put on, 4 mega events and we'll have other shows. This is different. So this would be a mega show. But as I've said, we haven't seen a lot of Zuffa boxing promotional material. Maybe we will on Saturday, but this seems to be somewhat of a change. Also, is it possible for anyone on Dana White's team to tell him once and for all that Turkey Al-Sheikh's name is not Sheikh Turkey, it's Turkey Al-Sheikh? Why does he continue to call him Sheikh Turkey? Does anyone understand? I think he dealt with a lot of the notable people in Abu Dhabi at one time, and they, Sheikh Tahnoon, who was very influential in bringing the UFC to Abu Dhabi. Turkey Al-Sheikh is his name. He's not Sheikh Turkey. Why does he continue to call him that? I don't understand. Anyway, we continue.
No, how much they get paid and.
Okay, so you will help raise these boxers, and then once they reach the potential of a Canelo, let's say, they're going to make the big money with Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, they're going to make big money here too. I mean, considering where they are. I mean, if everybody likes to throw the fighter pay out there, yet nobody does their homework. It's just a fun little, soundbite. Most of these guys that fight in boxing make $100 a round. Some guys will fight for a title for $15,000. So, everybody talks, but nobody does their homework. These guys that fight in my league, they're going to get paid.
Who's fighting? I mean, there is no one fighting for a major belt who's making 15. Maybe if they're fighting for the WBC Pink Supercontinental, Great Britain intercollegiate title, no one who is fighting for any notable title in boxing is making $15K. And no one who is fighting for any major title or at any sort of stature is getting $100 a round. He's talking about like lowest of low levels, like entry level. That's what he's talking about there. When he says that people who talk about fighter pay are not well researched, I don't know what he's talking about. And in this day and age, we have the benefit of the class action lawsuit, which the UFC settled, at least the first one, and in doing so told us, yeah, this is an acknowledgement that we didn't give the fighters from that period, when the sport wasn't as popular as it is today, enough money. So all the complaints, all the criticism of fighter pay were validated by this class action lawsuit, because now everyone's getting paid. And we went through some of the numbers, and there's a great story right now on uncrown.com talking about this. So he continues to say, we're not well researched. We've talked to enough fighters. He likes to talk about the fighters, and we'll get to this, about the fighter pay, who don't want to talk on the record. You don't think they talk off the record? You don't think that we're speaking, at least I can only speak for myself, from some place of knowledge and information? Of course we are. In any event, we know that the fighters weren't getting their fair share because there was a lawsuit that was settled that they didn't want to go any further, and they ended up paying some, $375 million. Let's continue.
Okay. You intend, and correct me if I'm wrong, to apply certain characteristics of the UFC. For example, one championship belt, unlike boxing that has 4 major belts. Right. And then you're going to make everybody fight each other when they're supposed to, the best fight the best. But the difference that I'm wondering about is fighter pay, because historically, boxers in championship matches are making a lot more than UFC fighters in championship matches. So what do you do?
Well, there's a handful of guys that always make that kind of money. When you look at the UFC, the money is spread across the entire group of guys. You eat what you kill. I mean, if you are a huge star,
can I pause for a second?
Ronda Rousey,
what does you eat what you kill actually mean? What does that actually mean? You eat what you kill. What does that mean? Is he trying to say if you become a big star, you'll get paid accordingly? I don't even know what that really means for all intents and purposes, but I just wanted to point that out. We continue.
Many people have proven that they could sell pay-per-views, and you eat what you kill here. We also have guys that would be considered
by the way, pay-per-views
journeymen in boxing who make millions of dollars. So the whole fighter pay thing is completely not true. And what I want to do is, obviously, I'm doing this Canelo Crawford fight, and I don't think anybody's questioning what these two are going to get paid.
Well, I am, because it's not on record. What's the base purse for Canelo?
Well, imagine what it would take to get Canelo to fight Crawford and have a guy move up weight classes when he's undefeated.
I've heard $100 million.
Probably.
But no one in the UFC's ever made that as a base purse.
Conor McGregor?
$100 million. But that was against Floyd in a boxing match. Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
That wasn't in the UFC.
What about Crawford?
I mean, by the way, can we pause?
Crawford.
Amber Dixon doing a phenomenal job here. She's well researched. She's not afraid. Again, you don't have to be confrontational. Just know what you're talking about. No one in the UFC has made anywhere near $100 million. Conor McGregor made $100 million for a boxing match, which was not under the UFC umbrella. They were a part of it. All they really did was loan him out to, Mayweather Promotions and Showtime and all that stuff. And she's like actually in a calm demeanor, hitting him back with facts. And I'm not sure if he expected that. Now, she's been around the game a long time. She's talked to him a bunch. But this was a great job. We continue.
I don't know. I actually don't even know. So that deal was cut with Sheikh Turkey in Saudi Arabia.
Again, with the Sheikh Turkey. He does know. Are you kidding me? They're running this. He does not know how much Canelo's making, really? He doesn't know how much Terence Crawford is making? Just say, I don't want to say unless they want to say, or go ask them. But I don't believe for a second that he doesn't know. Of course he knows. And the reason why he doesn't want to say it is because then a star in the UFC is going to be like, wait a second, you're promoting a fight where this top guy is getting $100 million and I'm getting $5 million? This is the stuff that people were predicting that could be an issue down the line. Let's continue with one more clip. And by the way, I urge you all to go check this out. Perhaps we could put it in the comments. Could we pin the interview with Amber in the chat, just to give her the love and respect that she deserves and her outlet deserves, because they did a great job with this interview and they deserve that. So if someone could do that, that would be great. But let's continue with one more clip from the interview.
You support that legislation, right?
100%, yeah.
How necessary is that to get passed?
By the way,
in
this
order
legislation that she's talking about, is she asks him about the Muhammad Ali reform that they're trying to usher in. So again, a very good and a very pertinent, a very topical question. She asks him, do you support it? Yes, he does. And now we continue.
for you to operate in boxing like you do in the UFC?
Yeah, I think that, I'll give you an example. If you look at the UFC, we bought the UFC for $2 million. And if you paid attention today, the stock is at $200 a share. So when you can, you know, I don't know if there's ever been a sport or a business or anything that's ever existed where trillions of dollars in revenue were generated. And at the end of the day,
Let's
there's
pause right
nothing
there. He loves to do, this is one that he's brought this up since March and previous to March. I don't know if there's any business where trillions, he always emphasizes trillions, have been poured into and there's nothing there. What does that even mean? What does that mean? Is Matchroom not worth hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars at this point? Is Queensberry not worth a hell of a lot of money? What about Top Rank, who doesn't even have a TV deal right now? You don't think that's worth something? What about Golden Boy? What about MVP? What about Misfits? What about Boxer? And on it goes. What does that mean? Now, is the structure of boxing like mixed martial arts where there was one organization that kind of started the sport and they became the main dog, the big dog, the big dog, the big dog, and there's been some other leagues that have tried to come, but it all started with the league? It's not the same. Boxing is 100 years older than MMA. Of course the structure is going to be different. But to suggest you can't buy boxing. Boxing is the sport. You can't buy boxing. There are promotions within boxing. It's a completely different model than MMA. So to suggest that boxing is worth nothing and that trillions have been put into it, that's not true. That is just absolutely not true. Matchroom, Boxer, Queensberry, Golden Boy, Top Rank, PBC, MVP, Misfits, all these are boxing organizations. Some are worth more than others. Some have had great success. Some have not had great success. Some have lost money. Some have gained money. Some are on top. Some are not on top. Some have good years. Some have bad years. But what is that? It's the same old hits that he tries to play. And we're going to come in and you're not going to do, it's impossible to pull off. I am on record to saying if they get into it, they will be successful, not because of Dana White, because of the people behind Dana White. Nick Khan, Mark Shapiro, people like that, Turkey. Dana's just playing the same old hits. And the same old hits implies that he's going to play the same old UFC hits. It's UFC embedded. It worked here, it's going to work there. Contenders, it's not going to be the same. So they are going to figure that out rather quickly, and they'll be successful because they're very smart people with great minds and resources and backgrounds. But this idea that boxing is in trouble or that it's dead or that it's a thing that trillions of dollars is insane, because you're promoting a guy in Canelo Alvarez who's about to make $100 million, reportedly, for a fight on Netflix in front of tens of thousands of people at Allegiant Stadium. If it was really a dead thing, would that even happen? Honestly, would that even happen? No. We continue.
What we did with the UFC is turned the UFC into an NFL, an NBA. There's a league, you reinvest back into the sport, and other people want to invest in the sport, whether it's sponsors or, any of these financial firms, whatever it may be. That's what needs to be done with boxing too, and that's what I'm going to attempt to do. Listen, there's no ego or arrogance whatsoever when I talk about getting into boxing and trying to fix it, because this is a busted sport.
I got to challenge you on this, though. When you say that no one does their research, how can we when the Nevada Athletic Commission no longer releases fighter purses?
Why don't they?
You tell me.
Oh, I have no idea. You're going to have to ask a commissioner that question. But all that stuff is supposed to be transparent, but there's got to be other, California or some of these other states that would release them to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Not in Nevada since 2020. But then, let's take the last championship fight in the UFC, Duplessis and Chimaev. I think, what did Duplessis make? $1 million base pay?
Ask them. It's not my place to talk about. That's the other thing, too. There's no gag order on any of these fighters. They could all sit down and do full interviews with you guys on how much they make and what they were paid. They don't want to, because they don't want you to know what they got paid. When people find out what you made, it makes life a lot tougher. There's a lot of people sitting around looking for handouts when they find out you made millions of dollars. But any of these fighters, you could do interviews with any of them. They could lay out their entire pay structure for you. But it's kind of weird. None of them do it.
And here's the thing. So she did ask about the purses not being released in Nevada since 2020. I did reach out to Jeff Mullins, and he said, I asked him if I can ask him a question. He said yes. I asked him if this was true and why, and then I did not get a response. So I'm not sure. Now, I have seen some reports saying that the UFC backed the notion of not releasing fighter pay. You know, are they trying to protect the fighters? Are they trying to protect themselves? Who knows? Hamza Chimaev and Dricus du Plessis aren't going to come out and be like, yes, hello, everyone. I'm going to tell you how much I make. And yes, I understand to a degree, you could say it's none of our business. But in the rest of sports, and that's how you kind of decide market value. The UFC stance has always been, we don't want this to get out because we don't want hanger-ons. We don't want leeches to come after our fighters. That seems like a very noble stance. I think you could come up with the hypothesis that perhaps there's other reasons why you don't want it to come out, because you don't want fighters to know how much their counterparts are making so that they can compare and contrast and then say, hey, if he's making that much, I want to know why I'm making this much. Anyway, I thought it was a fascinating interview. I thought it was conducted very well. Dana's playing the same old hits, and that's just that. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. But it does get a little tiresome to hear this thing about like the trillions of dollars and there's nothing there, and we don't release numbers because we don't want the fighters to have people coming out asking for handouts and all this stuff. Like, it's not exactly that. It's not exactly that. And I thought actually what was most telling about that interview was the fact that he laid out that we're going to be essentially the Contender Series. We're going to be the Contender Series, and then they're going to graduate to, I guess, the Ring/Riyadh shows. I thought that was really interesting because that wasn't exactly how it was positioned back in March. Go back to that day where they were doing all the press and making the announcement. That's not how it was positioned. So an interesting story to monitor. And of course, we'll see how it plays out this weekend. It's going to be a huge show. And like I said a couple days ago, I'm really curious to see the bells and whistles, the business, the broadcast, how it all looks, because they do have some of the best minds in all of TV coming together to put on this mega event. Thanks for watching this video. Before you go, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button for us. Also, give us a thumbs up, leave a nice comment. These things go a long way. And while you're here, do check out the rest of the channel. We've got live shows and full interviews, clips, and a whole lot more. We're doing big things here, and we appreciate your support very much.